Good evening, everyone. And welcome to this beautiful session, third session of the discussion of this book. We would like to say that it is a journey because anytime we propose, and we are proposed to start a work or dedicate ourselves to something, it's at times hard to start, right? But when we start, we have all the intention, all the good things that we think, we feel about it. And then when it gets to a certain point, it's like, oh gosh, here we go again. So pray. I'm excited for this third session. Tonight we're going to be covering 3 more chapters, chapter 7, 8, and 9. And hopefully December is right around the corner. Well, maybe, October is when we are about to finish the book. It's 10 sessions, 3 chapters of the book that we'll be covering. But just as a reminder for all of us, and for those who are joining us for the first time tonight, this book, Thought in Life, I have a copy here. Unfortunately, we don't have any copies at the SSB that we can purchase or sell or purchase. We will have soon, hopefully. We'll try to get some copies here for us so we can buy, and we can follow as well on the same thought. Much that is in here is on the codification, as we will see some tonight. But this book was a book brought by the Spirit Emmanuel through the hands of the medium Chico Xavier. When the mentor, Emmanuel, was asked to kind of put together some kind of, let's say, work that would give some guidelines for those who are incarnating on earth, right? And who are those? Us. Even though we're 25 years old, right? Still need this help and this guidelines, because guess what? We don't get to learn everything from our parents. We don't get to learn, everything at once. We need time. We need many lifetimes to master. So this is a great opportunity for all of us to come, stop, think a little bit about life, and join us in this discussion of this book. That doesn't want to take, I don't want to take away the opportunity, the desire that I also have for everybody to read the book and make your own conclusions, because what I like to bring here, as we like to say, with a lot of the text of the book, even though the idea of a presentation is not to bring a lot of text because it becomes boring, but I don't want to miss a lot of the things that Emmanuel says to really imprint in our bodies, physical and spiritual bodies, the ideas that we discuss here every time we come to this session. So that is just a kind of a recap of what the book is, or what the proposal is for each one of us. Those following us on the web as well, hopefully will be able to study with us as we make these presentations available. We have covered thus far chapters 1 through 6. We talk on the first session about the mirror of life, our will, cooperation, instruction, education, and faith in the last session, session 2. Tonight, we will talk about work, association, and suggestion. Very, very, very helpful for our daily lives. Kirsten yesterday, as she said, she was in the beach, right, Kirsten? And she thought compelled to come to, to the SSB today. We're just joking, she wasn't. And she come over here to work. Wait a minute, Leo, working? Is she working right now? Are you working right now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Some of us already said yes. Some of us were here this past Monday. And, Alba, in our little session before our spiritual treatment, she talked about work as well. She did not know that we were going to talk about work today. She did not know that we were to be talking about association. If we were to think about the idea of associating, right, ideas, mind to mind, and all those things. And there was no suggestion from me to her to talk about work. You see how one of the things, these 2 chapters, they work together. As well as faith. And I would like to also jump a little bit ahead of us to take a look at closely about the other chapters, understanding the creative family, right? We'll talk about society. We'll talk about duty. We will talk about prayer, death, and love, all these things. So please bear with us, because we will make connections as well with the Spiritist science, So we will go deeper into this beautiful book that Emmanuel brought to us. Before we go on with the idea of work, I would like to do something a little bit different than we have done in the past 2 sessions. Allow me to read, and if you notice, I don't have my glasses today, so thank you, Anita. No, because I guess I'm probably, so bear with me as I read this, and I would like to make a connection with a passage of the Bible. Recently, we have been bombarded with many things in our lives, many distractions, right? Many things that perhaps takes us away from where we would like to get to, and the things that we have to attend to get somewhere, if you will. So I would like to stop and invite everyone to go back to Jesus' time. This is not a Bible study. Please don't take me wrong. The intention here is not to think that we come here to study this or that field, but to truly exemplify what we will learn tonight about work, association, and suggestion, and make reference with this moment so we can exemplify, so we can go into a moment, right? As much as like when we read a book, a story that we go back and it's so good that we're like, wow, this really touched my heart. It's the passage, 10 verses 38 through 42. And it's the passage that Jesus come in contact with Martha and her sister Mary. Some of you already know. I will read and we will go back to this passage each time we go through each chapter to kind of really connect with the message. So let us imagine ourselves with Jesus, walking around, following Jesus, trying to get something new, right? Understand life, trying to understand ourselves and others. I'm going to say not they, but as we went, he, Jesus, entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. She had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she came to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Then tell her to help me." Jesus answered her, "Martha, Martha," not only once, but you see it twice. "Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken from her." Now, when we talk about work, we go back and straight and think about Martha, right? She's doing the things at the house. She's doing the things that she is supposed to do, much like ourselves. I heard one of us here saying today, I'm not going to say who, "Oh my gosh, I had so much to do today." And hopefully we got things done, right? And it's okay. We are busy. We're supposed to be busy. We're supposed to do things that we're supposed to attend in life. But there is another side as well. I'm not saying that this is bad, but much like in this message, we also have to see and analyze the other sides of life. We put the message, the passage aside, but let's not forget, we have Jesus, we're walking with him, and we were invited to this house by 2 sisters, right? Martha and Mary. And we are there now with them, right? And in between, we're learning these things, okay? When we talk about work, the first thing that comes to mind is studying Spiritism is the natural laws, okay? I want to just go over quickly of what the natural laws are, right? And make some emphasis on, bring some emphasis as well to what we see as laws in our day-to-day lives. Law, by the dictionary.com, law is the principle and regulations established in a community by some authority and applicable to its people, whether in the form of legislations or of custom and policies recognized and enforced by judicial decision, or any written or positive rule or collection of rules prescribed under the authority of state or nation, as by the people in its constitution, compared by law, statute law. This is our definition of law, which does serve a great purpose, right? We have a set of rules that we need to follow to maintain order. Now, when we go back to the natural laws, the laws of God that God has created, which is immutable, unlike the human laws, right? That we have to make some amendments, that we have to change, that we have to create new laws because new things come along in our lives and we have to say, okay, now how do we regulate this problem? For example, solar energy right now. There's a huge regulation on it right now because in the past, nobody knew, nobody thought that this was going to be something big. Obviously, the government have to come and regulate. There are taxes that are imposed and all these things that we understand, much like all the things. For example, when we didn't have cars, guess what? They had to create traffic laws, right? They had to create signs. That light that is in front of me stopped me from getting to work. Well, the light is not there to make us mad. The light is there to give access for other people to cross the intersection as well. If we don't stop, guess what? We infringe the law, we can hurt ourselves, we can hurt others as well. So the law is there to help. When we talk about law, we don't want to be in a position that, oh my gosh, this is here to really upset me. The natural laws are not there to upset us. Where are the natural laws? Well, we'll see here. It's inside of us. It's something that we were born, we're created, not in this lifetime, but when we are created by God, it's inside of us. We have forgotten, we have chosen to forget because of our needs, our wants, whatever that may be, right? But it is also, when we say it is also, written and we can study in this book, the Spirit's book that we are studying right now every Thursday here at the SSP, the third part of the Spirit's book, chapter 3, we will study the number 2 law here, but it's really chapter 3 or third part, the second law that is studied on the book. Much like the law of worship, and we're going to say all of them, so we remember. Law of reproduction, law of preservation, law of destruction, or law of transformation, if we would like to say that way. Some people don't like that idea of destruction, but it's written on the book as destruction. Social law, law of progress, law of equality, law of liberty, law of justice, and compassion. Okay? We say these things because here we have another manual, talking about the book Taught in Life, another manual for us to study, dive into what the spirits have said to us and taught us about the natural laws. They are for, when I say our time, for a long time, and they are interpreted in a different way depending on our state of evolution. The law won't change. It's the way we perceive the law. And we're going to understand a little bit better when we talk about what Emmanuel said about work, not the law of work, but work in itself and how we perceive work. Okay? So the idea, as we have said, is to take these laws that are in our conscience and flourish. We're waiting now for spring, right? For things to bloom. What about these seeds that are inside of us working hard to make sure that they are blooming and soon in our lives? Because the sooner we do it, the sooner we study them and we understand and we practice them. One thing is obviously, when we talk about instruction, if you remember, is to know about things, but then if we don't put into practice, guess what? It serves no purpose. So it's for us to really study and put into practice. And that will, in a way, I would like to say, change our lives in a great way, because we can change what we have done in the past, but we can actually create a better environment for us to reap the consequences of the past. And that makes us happy. Happier, per se. Okay? So that's the idea. Just a kind of like a reminder that we can go deeper into this idea of work if we would like to, much like the other chapters that I mentioned earlier when we talk about family, the social law, when we talk about assistance, prayer, because when we talk about prayer, guess what? We will kind of touch a little bit on the idea of the law of worship. Two questions that we would like to bring from this book that is in this third chapter. It's question 674 and question 675. Kardec then asks the spirits, is the necessity of labor a law of nature, right? Is this something that is what God created? And the spirit said, labor is a law of nature, and as much is a necessity per se. Civilization obliges persons to work harder because it increases both their needs and their enjoyments. Number 2, the second question, 675. Should we understand by labor only material occupations? No. The spirit labors as does the body. Every useful occupation is labor. We see here that on the first, that as much as it is a natural law, is a necessity of the physical body. We create necessities. We get up in the morning, the first thing that we can connect with is what? Our bed. Somebody had to put that bed together. The clothing that we are wearing, the toothpaste, and goes on and on and on and on throughout the day. We need the material that we need to come and get all the elements, put it together. That creates what? Work, right? And we have to work for these things. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to help one another grow. We need these chairs right now. We need this place. We need the projection. All of these things create what? Work. It's a exchange of favors, if you will, even though we have money in between to kind of exchange these things. But there is a need for this, as well as when we say that it is a spiritual necessity. Because what are we doing when we are working? Hopefully, we're changing our intellect. If I'm working with a co-worker, we're doing what? Exchanging feelings, as we saw here on previous chapters. If we have differences, we try to come together and think, oh gosh, yeah, I'd never thought about that way. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm right, right? And we exchange this idea. In the second question, we see that, yes, we do work, as we have mentioned here, but if I don't have the physical body, what are my necessities? Now we have to take in consideration our position on our evolutionary path. Because not necessarily when we discarnate, or those who are waiting to come to this side and incarnate, everyone is evolved, that they perceive work. Look what I'm saying. It's not that they don't have to work, that they perceive work in an elevated way, as we were trying to get to tonight, right? They have a spiritual body. They also have necessities. They need to drink. They need to eat in their condition. But they also need the garments, the places, manipulating the environment, right? The universal cosmic fluid to create the buildings, to create the chairs, the way they sit, and all these things. Sometimes we think, and we come in contact with individuals that, they're trying to understand a little bit more about Spiritism or the spiritual side of life, right? And they ask, well, the spirit needs this, the spirit needs that. How does that work? And again, it depends all in their evolutionary path in life, where they are in their advancement. Is their body a little bit more, let's say, quintessential, where they're so evolved that they don't need the heavy body? And I'm talking about the spiritual body now. Or are they not so well evolved that they're pretty much like us? Not like this matter, but there is a spiritual body that we see. And we see that we'll make a connection with this a little bit later, that things happen in both realms of life. These are the two questions that we'd like to cover about work that is in the Spirit's book, to give us a glimpse that everything that we do that is useful, it's work. Sitting here now, it's work. Oh, but how can that be? We're working, right? Think about our bodies right now. Are you telling yourselves to transform themselves, to multiply themselves? They're working. The cell of our lungs, the cell of the digestive system, right? Everything that we are around, that is around us, it's working. When Jesus says that our Father who art in heaven, God is working. Everything works in the universe. Everything works. Even the animals, we'll see in this chapter that Kardec was really intelligent to ask a question about the animals, that we see that nature produces enough or gives enough to the animals to live, but they do work. They work to maintain themselves. It's a defense mode, but as they eat, as they reproduce, right, there is a chain of animals that they were helping, right? The lion needs the gazelle. Because if they're not there, what's going to happen? The lions will die. It's this process of life that we see that sometimes we take it for granted. And we need to notice that everything works. So work in this idea, the idea that Emmanuel brings to us is much, it's a great reminder as well as an eye-opener for us to get closer to God. In a lot of the chapters, and as we have seen, Emmanuel reminds us that we're here to get closer to God. If there is anything that we can remind ourselves about these sessions and about life in general, is that whatever we can do to get closer to God is an amazing thing that we can do. It's let's say one of the I don't want to change anybody's aim or ideas of life, but to get closer to God. Now, yes, I believe in this God, that God, but if we all get together and we think, what is conforming to God, right? Everything that is good, that is calming, and thank God we are in this position that we understand and we perceive this mind, right? The supreme intelligence of the universe, the creator of all things. As we learn, we question the answer number one of the Spirit's book, that God is this being that wants us well. And in order for us to get closer to this well-being, we have to do good things, right? Good deeds. But we're all learning. We're not here to judge, say, oh, this person does this person believes on that. It's up to us. And he says the following: if we wish to mentally register the light of higher planes, we must be willing to embrace work as our daily sustenance. Very well, Emmanuel. Try not to tell me that when I'm upset with someone at work, because I don't want to be there, right? I don't want to be there. It's boring. We have to get up early, right? But we have to embrace it. In order for us to get to a higher plane, we have to embrace it. We read the message. Unfortunately, I don't have the chapter here that Margaret opened, talking about the tedious tasks that we have to do in our lives. It's not easy. It's certainly not easy. But if we condition ourselves to say, okay, maybe it's tedious now, but once I pass this tedious part, something new will come, and much more greater opportunities will come in my life as well. Then things change. Our perception changes. Well, but I don't know when I'm going to get a new job. I don't know when I'm going to get to do something new. Well, look for something new. Do the best that you can to create new opportunities on your life as well. While you're at it, take care of what you were supposed to do. In the past, we looked upon work as something belonging to the lower classes or to condemned slaves. Thank God we don't have slavery nowadays, and we see work as in a different way. Yes, the bottom line still today, we can't lie, is the money that we receive, the exchange for what we need, right? I have a need, and this job is going to help me get what I need. Much like the employer will look at us and say, you know what, Leo has a need, I have a need as well, he can do this job, I'll pay him to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a step extra that we're trying to get to. It's not bad, but we need to change our perception. Work, the arts, housework, industry, and farming were previously assigned to slaves, while the supposedly free lived in a state of comfortable idleness. How many CEOs we see nowadays? How many people who are actually holding higher position in companies and elsewhere? Guess what? They're working as much as some other individuals in the front line, if we can say it that way. Or they have worked enough to get to that position, to get to that moment of their lives that we think that this individual is not working as much as I am, but the worries that this person perhaps carries within their hearts and their minds, it's much greater than us when we finish our 8 hours, 9 hours of workload a day. they get to carry the workload to their families. They get to carry the hard work to bed when they go to bed as well. So don't think that it's easy. Don't let these appearances, as we were talking about later on too, we'll talk about later on, to fool us, because these people, they're working sometimes much harder than we are. And it's something that we need to understand that, yeah, perhaps this was the past. It is true, and we changed. Evolution is telling us that we all need to work. One thing that amazes me is that whenever I come in contact with someone who goes through an operation, a physical procedure to help with something, an ailment or some kind of condition that the person has to operate a part of the physical body, the doctors in the past, they used to say what? Rest, rest, rest. Don't move, right? You can't move. Nowadays, you go through something, the doctors are telling us what? Get up, move, because we walk, because we know nowadays that it is through the process of making our physical bodies work, the circulation, the respiration, all these things will bring oxygen to the area, to the physical body. So we were built to work. Even our physiology tells us that. Today, however, we know that the law of work is a path to freedom. Without this law, the mental world would fall into slumber and stagnation. To flee its dictate is like stepping to the roadside to watch the traffic of evolution pass, leaving behind all those who choose the illusion of laziness. We think that way still, right? As we'll see later on, we are bombarded with ideas that life should be easy, right? Our liberal minds, and I'm not here to judge anyone, I'm not here to, pick parties or whatever. We think that we are here to have a free lunch. No, we have to work. Life in itself, we see that we are, as we said here early, if we need, as much as in the past as today, we need protein, what do we need to do? We need to go after the animal, right? Well, the animals were the only source of protein in the past, as we thought. We have to go and harvest the food that we need, and that takes work. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of determination in order for us to receive what we want. But here's the thing. Can we think as work as service? Can we jump out of the idea that I'm going to this place to receive a salary? Can we think beyond that salary? Even though we need a salary. Please don't think that I'm discounting putting the salary, oh, I don't need the salary. No, we need to clothe ourselves, to eat. We need to pay rent. We need to do all the things. But when is it possible for us to go to work and have in our foreheads, if possible, stamped in our forehead the idea of service? Is it possible? Anybody would like to take a shot? Can we, hopefully, can we jump ahead of the idea of just going to work to get a salary? Can we go to work thinking about a service that I'm going to be doing some goodness to someone? All right, give me examples. Huh?
When you volunteer some institution?
When you volunteer.
Okay, it's a service.
So Jeanette is saying when you volunteer in an institution, it's a service. Okay, Yasko.
I think even in work that we receive salary, any extra effort that we make in order to do a better job, in order to make the place more pleasant, that we not receive any salary for it, is a good service.
Okay.
So I think I like the word serve instead work. And Jesus actually, one of the things that he used when he was, he healed one person in a Sabbath. and the Pharisees condemned him because it was not supposed to work. He said, no, I was serving.
Very
So
well.
there was nothing in the law that you could not serve someone that was in need. It was not work.
Very well. Thank you. Not to bring this to put anybody in a position, but I would like to ask everyone to think of our workplaces right now, our conditions where we are, and think how can you change the idea of from that you're going to work, right? That you're going to the establishment to work, but to serve. Yasko gave a couple examples. Let's say, for example, you're doing something out of your job description. If you're cleaning, for example, to make the environment better, that's service. And guess what? It's going to be a suggestion for someone else to do the same, right? People will associate what we talk about next with that idea. What if you are pleasant? You say good morning to everyone. You see now the changes, and we think that it's something greater, that much greater than this. No, it's simple. Simple ideas that we can ask ourselves and say, what can I do to go to this environment and make it better? It becomes service. Number one, it's not on your job description. Number two, it's something that you're doing out of heart because you're not getting paid for it, right? Yes, the idea, thank you, Jeanette, to go and serve some place that you're not making money and you volunteer in some place, that's wonderful. But we can do these things in our daily lives because the moment that I stop thinking about of getting something back, receiving something back, an exchange of favors, and you do willingly, guess what? That's service. That stopped from being work. Because me treating my wife and my kids well, that's expected. Parents giving the condition for their kids to go to school and eat and have a shelter, that's expected. But how can we make it or go beyond this idea of of what is expected of us? Give me 1 second, and then we'll go to that. Hold that thought. Emmanuel says the following: to elevate ourselves to God, although captive to the requirements of the material plane in which it dwells for a time, he can nevertheless begin to experience elevation, voluntary service to mankind once he opens his soul to the reflection of the divine sphere, which is this idea of service, which was well explained by Yasko when Jesus actually cured on the Sabbath. Action transforms the environment. Service transforms men. Look at this. The work transforms the environment, but when we serve, it's transforming us. Look what this is going to do to myself in my evolution, to the environment. If I think that I'm now serving and thinking that we have successive lives, and if I make my environment better now by serving, guess what? I have a huge probability that when I come back here, if I come back to this environment or nearby, things will be better. Thinking about the future. A task that is paid for is generally received with thanksgiving by those it has helped. Yet, such tasks remain a part of ordinary and typically worldly exchange. On the other hand, tasks that are offered spontaneously and voluntarily without thought of reward will activate the influence of heavenly goodness that also helps everyone freely. As we advance, we will understand more and more clearly the need to work for the sake of serving. The sake of serving, right? Because when we look what we receive, the sun, the air that we breathe, we don't pay for that. Perhaps we pay some rain taxes, but we don't get to be charged for the air that we breathe. We don't get to be charged for our bodies when we reincarnate on life. So these things comes to us freely, and we have the opportunity to grow. So the idea is the following: yes, we have to give emphasis to work, especially in this materialistic life that we live on earth. The much that sometimes we put aside and say, oh my gosh, this is not, I'll give an example. what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we perhaps discount that the March Madness that is happening right now, right? All the basketball teams playing and all those things. But imagine how many jobs it generates. The hours of television commercial, right? The people who are behind and all. In the past, I'm like, is this needed? Yes, it is needed. We're only 2018, excuse me. We're not 3,000 years after Christ. No, we're still here. That's okay. We have made advancements, but we're still here. So we need these things. And through these things, we obtain much. The ability for people to work, the ability for people to produce, the athletes, right? What they're doing in their lives. So I'm just giving an example because in the past, you know, we tend to think, oh my gosh, this is not, it's still needed. It's okay. And it generated a lot of work. So we go from work to idea of learning, which is important too, right? That when I go into work, you know, I open up for learning the necessities beyond my tasks. Learn what is up to me to do, because we don't want to take huge tasks that we're just going to shoot ourselves in the foot. No. Learn. Look at the environment. What else can I do beyond what is being asked? And then serve. And then do willingly. Do without thinking only about the paycheck that we will receive. Without the necessity to have to go to another institution and say, okay, here I am to serve. Going back, as I promised, to the passage that we had from the Bible with Martha and Mary. Let's go back and analyze the idea of work. Who was working? We have Martha. Well, let's say this. We have ourselves. We have Martha, we have Mary, and we have Jesus. Who was working?
Mary.
Hmm?
Mary.
Mary was working? Only Mary?
No, only Mary.
All right, speak up. All of them were working. Were they working the same level? Martha was working in the sense, the physical sense. She was preparing, she was trying to serve the food, the people. All of us were trying to, were getting the smell of the food, and she was working. Now, since we're talking about Martha, was she learning? Very little. Another question, was Martha serving? Was she serving? Okay, so if she was serving, why did she bother asking Jesus to tell the sister to say, come and help? Because when I serve, I don't question what the others are doing.
She was overwhelmed.
She was overwhelmed. Okay, I get it. But was she, and I'm not judging, I'm just putting perspective, this idea, utilizing the moment for us to put in perspective this idea of service. She was really dedicating her time to work. But someone who serves also will say, it's okay. My sister is talking to Jesus, right? Learning. Who am I to say, do this or do that? Do you see the balance that we have to bring in our lives? That's one of the reasons why we bought the message to learn. Mary, she was working because she was the number one doing something useful, but also she was also learning. As we were discussing about this at home, somebody, one of my kids said, well, but think about as well that as Mary was learning, she was habilitating herself to perhaps serve in the future, perhaps her sister that did not know who was in front of her, which was Jesus, and habilitate her to live a better life. So she was equipping herself, and we do that at work as well, to perhaps one day say something to others, not only to her sister, but many others, to be able to serve as well. So it's important for us to bring this balance. Is it necessary to clean the bathroom? Is it necessary to clean the Spiritist Center? Is it necessary to clean our house, to clean the car? Yes, it is. But when we have the ability to learn as well as to serve, we have to change how we perceive the work, and actually handle the workload, as we read with Joanna de Angelis at the beginning as well. Do we get it? Do we have a question on this idea connecting with the message?
I have a comment.
Please.
I think we serve from the moment we get at work until
last minute we are serving, because we are, in a way, doing our work, and that work is going to help somebody else at the end, you know, or is it the customer, or is it your coworker, or is anybody that is involved in your work that is going to catch up later, you know, whatever they have to do. Most jobs are like a pyramid. You know, you finish your work here, somebody else is going to get finish what they have to do. It depends on your work. It depends on you to finish your work, and then they start their work.
Gotcha.
So if you do your work well, you're helping that person, and you're serving, and you are helping the customer also on a daily basis when you do your work, and you're helping your coworker. You are helping a lot of people. And for example, where I work, I have two screens. I say one screen is my work, and all the screens are the emails that I have, maybe 2,000 emails per week or more.
Wow.
So I have to assist people that are asking me questions, or they're asking me for something. Even it's not my work to do, I still jump, and I see nobody is helping, so I just do it and help. Look, here is what you need, and look at it and give it information. Otherwise, they will never finish their work if you don't provide the information to that person.
Right.
So that's a kind of, and think about the nurse. She's always serving from the moment she gets there until the end of her shift.
Right. It's very well, we're so well organized at this point in our lives, you know, that we can see this, right? But the idea here, and I thank you for the example, and I think all of us, we already have this condition inside of us that is not just the salary, because the poor of us who goes to work thinking about the salary only, but is how can I make my environment better, you know, because we don't want to go to work and feel miserable, but how can I make my environment better is the key questions, and how much are we connecting with this? And that's the next step that we're going to take as we move from work to association. Go ahead.
I think about this story of Martha and Mary. I think the teaching, in my view, is that we have to develop a discernment to see what is special, how special is something that has been offered to me in that moment. The routine, the work, perhaps I can do half an hour late, it won't change the output.
Correct.
But if I miss the learning, which is Jesus offering in that very special moment, if we miss that, perhaps we will never have it. So I think this discernment of, say, I will choose the best for this moment, I think that is the lesson. The routine, I can, not that it's not important, like you said, but I can do later and do what is very special in that moment.
Thank you, Yasko. And that's one of the points one of the reasons why we bring this here. As we have said at the beginning, there are a lot of things coming our way that kind of okay, I have to clean the house, which is important, but I'm worried about things that are not so important right now. Much like when other things are very important to us that are presented, opportunities that are presented in our lives, we're thinking about cleaning the house. We're thinking about the physical work that can be done later. So let us be in the moment. Thank you for the reminder. Let us be in the moment, because the distractions that will happen everywhere, every moment of our lives. Why, since we're talking about distraction, why they happen? Last week when we had Julio here, we learned a whole lot with him. We will touch a little bit on the idea that he brought to us when he was talking about the influences that we suffer and the influences that we cause on others as well, because we associate. And before the questions, when we open up for questions for Julio and comments, it dawned on me to remind everybody that sometimes we are afraid to ask certain questions, right? Oh, no, maybe I shouldn't ask this question. Maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And sometimes that comes to our minds as well in our lives. You have the opportunity to help, but you don't help, or sometimes you help, right? Or we do the right things, and we don't know why it happened or how it happens. We live in this constant exchange. We live in this constant association with one another. And sometimes what I think is something that is inside of me, it's just a product of me connecting with others. Perhaps with not from the thought or feeling that I'm thinking right now, but things that I have done yesterday, before yesterday, a year ago, a lifetime ago. And here it is, the product right now. Us in this room talking about association. Because if we think that everything that we have brought us here. Oh, Lee, okay, I got up in the morning, I know about this place that, I go every week, Saturdays and not. Look, we have many choices, we have many chances. But bottom line, we chose to be here. And everything that happened in our lives, right, brought us here. It gave us the ability to be here through association. If a person could see, this is Emmanuel's words, if a person could see the currents of thoughts around him, he would recognize that we all live on the principle of affinity. We talked about this affinity before, talking about the mirror of life, our minds, right? When we associate with others, when we reflect upon others, and we receive the reflection of others as well. Affiliation is the desire to associate with one another. It presides over all events and commands the existence of all beings. Much like this guy over here. When he's either thinking about food, bills, work, zombies, and maybe the book. Maybe the book, right? And we're like, okay, why am I thinking about food right now? Yeah, there's a huge chance that, we have the food in the back, the thoughts, the feelings that were created when we came in and we saw the food, that yes, we can think about food. It's the association, right, that we have. It's okay. But the problem when we're thinking about food all the time, we don't know, like just thinking about food or bills, problems that we have in our lives. And we're using the word over here, the words, to represent many things because we don't believe in zombies. We don't believe that there are zombies, but just things that are not necessary to our lives. And we call it zombies, right? Because we fathom about these ideas that it doesn't exist. But really for us to think and rethink and reanalyze it if we can, as Yasko said, that we have to live in the moment. Why am I thinking about this? Why did I just thought about this person that I haven't seen for ages? And then you pick up the phone and you call the person and the person tells you, look, I was thinking about you too. Why did that happen? Oh, great connection. Yeah, there's a great connection. The thought, the association that we live under that is much deniable for all of us. That we think that is just something by chance. Emmanuel actually goes in the book to talk about Democritus, that was the philosopher before Socrates, that talked about how atoms at that time, right? No way to examine these particles, talking about atoms already. And he really gave this idea on how these particles, they live with one another to construct what we see, what we can touch. And now we see that our life is this association. Our minds is this association. I want to just take a break of what we are seeing here. Let me actually take this back. Daniel, sorry. I know it's a little shift there. Much like as we mentioned last week with Julio. Okay. There it is. Bless you. Okay. If it's hard to understand, I will explain. This is an antenna over here sending signals. These are the individuals right here receiving. And guess what? As they're receiving, they are exchanging the same ideas. This is us. Let us think of this antenna of for example, what the media is proposing to us, which we'll talk a little bit about it later on too, proposing to us. And we receive these bombardments, these thoughts, right? What we do, we get to the SSB and we talk about it. We go home And we talk about it. We get to work. Oh, did you see that on TV yesterday? Now we have on our phones, right? Now we have on our watch when the news comes to us and say, oh my gosh, I saw this, did you see that what happened? It's us exchanging these thoughts. I want to just put a disclaimer here that, sorry, Julio, this is much better than your design last week. I can do a better job than he can. He can speak better, but I can at least draw better than he can. But this is our association. This is how it works. And I would like to invite everyone to analyze these things because it happens more than we think. Yeah, the waves, Yasko, I get it. They're not waves. They're, I'm just connecting here the ideas. You get the point. It's important for us to really think about these things. That perhaps if I go to a place where I'm upset, I'm going to be connecting with people who are upset. Right? Perhaps if I'm changing my idea of work and trying to serve, guess what? I will definitely connect with people who are serving as well. And this idea, as Julio mentioned last week, is not only to think that there are only negative things, that these waves are only negative waves. No. We are in contact with what we produce, and we wish to receive it as well. So guess what? If you think of something negative and you want to think well and you want to be happy, think positively. You take that idea that you had and say, okay, now Leo is going to replace with this. This is what I want for my life. This is not possibly what I want for my life. This is what I want for myself. This is what I want for my environment. And guess what? There will be a response to it. There will be a response to it. We tend to connect with the negative. We tend to connect with what's happening in the environment, right? And there we are. We go after work. We go after the zombies. We go after the things that perhaps are not necessary for our lives anymore. And we waste our times. Emmanuel continues by saying, we assimilate the thoughts of those who think as we do. When we feel, visualize, speak, or act, we are in tune with the emotions or ideas of all other persons, incarnate or discarnate, who are on our wavelength. We are in the Spiritist Center. We can never forget that we're assimilating things. We're connecting with not only the physical, but also the discarnated ones. If we saw those individuals, and we consider in that little drawing, only incarnated ones, multiply by 3 the discarnated ones that are connected with us. So think of intensity on the wave that Yasko said it was not, the lines were not waves. This one is better, right, Yasko? So think of those waves. Now they're being multiplied by what we see and what we don't see as well. Because as much as I connect with someone who is in another city, a family member, a friend, right? That was no way for us to remind of ourselves of one another as we think. The same things happen with the discarnated world. The spirits that we study, us, individual, without the physical body. We're constantly attracting or repelling mental energies that attack themselves to us, or they get to be attacked to us. They will either strengthen us for good or for evil according to the direction we choose. So we are susceptible to these waves, right? To the feelings, to the thoughts, but we get to choose. Because it would not be of God to say, oh, now you have to go through this. I can choose. We saw at the beginning of the first session that I get to choose what I receive. And I think we even gave the example of Chris, right? Anybody can say anything. Anybody can do anything to me, but it's up to me to receive it. If somebody comes to me with some kind of rotten food, it'll be up to me to say, no, I don't want this. This is going to upset my stomach. For those who doesn't like, for example, spicy food, you're not going to eat it because you know it's not going to be good for you. Other people, on the other hand, they'll put more. Oh, this is nothing, right? It depends on the person, depends on the taste. And our tastes are created by how we would like to see the world, how we like to see one another. This is the most important part of this message that Emmanuel brings to us. Let us examine this real quick. Desire is the lever that acts upon our feelings. It generates the energy we use in accordance with our will. And then he goes on to say, whenever we dwell on the defects of others, excuse me, the typo there, the mirror of our mind immediately reflects and we, so to speak, observe the depressing images. Our imagination then begins to digest this kind of nourishment, which is later assimilated by delicate tissues of our soul. Often, as time goes by, our soul tends to express through the body that which it had assimilated. This takes place either through the carnal body on earth or the spiritual body the soul uses after death. What is he trying to say? Whenever I come in contact with something negative and I point a finger at someone who did something wrong or who has expressed himself, whatever has happened, we assimilate the error. We take the error within ourselves, and guess what? The probability for us to do the same thing later is great, is huge. Because we're connecting with the negative thing. I'm not saying, and Emmanuel is not saying, that when you go and analyze a situation to say, that was unfortunate. I would like not to do that, not to fall in that temptation, and I would like to offer something for this person to become a better individual. That's something different. But when we go and accuse, when we go and do something, say something to the person that we think that we are much better than individual, chances are we will do the same thing. If not the same thing, something as bad as that individual. And we will create other assimilations. We will connect with other negative minds as well. This is what Emmanuel in this chapter is reminding us to make sure that we assimilate, we connect with higher things, with positive things, so that we don't lose ourselves in errors that cannot be avoided if we were not to connect with it. As we have said it, there are many ways that we can choose, right, to connect with. When we get in our cars, if we're still listening to FM radio or AM radio, it's okay. There's nothing wrong. I do sometimes. But I'll choose with I'll connect with the wavelength with the radio station that I think it's appropriate for my life. Sometimes that changes. I'm not going to lie. I love NPR. Sometimes I do like to listen to soft rock. But sometimes I cannot even come near those things. I need to listen to some classical music. It all depends. Why is that? Sometimes I ask, no, it's not perfect. Let's not say, great to listen to NPR in the morning because you know you're going to be bombarded with some crazy things. But you do it anyways, right? And NPR is not bad. I'm not saying, and they're very impartial in many ways. But can we listen to something better? Yes, we can. There are talks, right? There are more like study books that we can listen that is better than some of the news that we're listening in the morning. Criticism and all those things. If we listen to one of the stations, TV station about the government, and you see the bombardment, right? Oh, this person did this, that person did that. What is the chance that when you get to work, you're not going to be bombarding? Perhaps none. Because the association that you made with that TV station is already there, imprinted on us. And it doesn't stop in the physical body. When we lose the physical body, we will continue to do the same things. We think that when we lose the physical body, we'll become angels, right? It will be the same, if not worse, what we're seeing right now. If we are thinking in a negative way. When I say worse, if we're designing negative things, if we're connecting with negative things. Now, if we do, or really, truly trying to do better things and become a better person, it will be better. It will be even better because our minds will be freer from the physical body and we'll be able to connect with higher minds as well. So, as he says, that explains why those who criticize others will generally end up practicing the same deeds they had condemned in them. Their interest and involvement in the minute details, of evil cause them to unconsciously absorb its emanations until one day they find themselves dominated by its forces. Don't shoot the messenger. It's Emmanuel saying. We can doubt all we want. We can doubt all we want, but it happens every single day. And it's up to us to change this. To finalize and conclude this part, this chapter, he says the following. When we think, talk, or walk, the power of our ideas, of our words and acts instantly reach a potential commensurate with the number of persons, incarnate or not, who agree with us. Such a potential tends to increase indefinitely, returning to us the consequences of our own acts. Let us therefore always seek goodness, always help, learn to forgive and love, for by so doing we will reflect the labors of light, and this perfectly solve our relationship problems that we have here on earth. It's very simple. Not in a simple way to say that it's not going to take work, it will take work. But it's just a matter of choosing this road, making this idea, taking this ideal than others. So that's the idea, and let this be what we have said thus far, a suggestion, which is our third chapter of tonight. But let us not make, as this gentleman here is facing right here, that he's putting the suggestion in the suggestion box, and the suggestion box goes straight to the trash, right? The false bottom there in the suggestion box that sometimes, okay, yeah, we'll read, we'll think about it, but we don't, right? We come in contact with this, and many other studies of life, and we don't stop and we don't think. All that we need, as we have said here, is a distraction, right? When we go back to the passage of Martha and Mary, what was Martha connect with? Martha was connected with the work, with the physical work, right? Automatic work. Thank you, Yasko. What was Mary connected with? To the good news, to Jesus, spiritual life, right? She was able to connect with something else. And she was reminded that, look, Martha was reminded that, look, it's okay, Mary has chosen the right path, right? She has chosen to be connected with something much greater than, yes, the things that we have to attend in our lives, but not necessarily right at this moment. Not necessarily, we don't have to attend to the dirt that is on the floor. Not that we have to do this or that. What is in my hand right now? Thank God you guys are paying attention. Very well, thank you. But we have a choice. We could be thinking about other things, right? We could be unsettled and forgetting about what's being talked over here, but we are choosing to be here tonight. And since we're here, what do we try to do? We try to pay attention. We try to give of ourselves, right? It's the assimilation, the choices that we have to make with what's in front of us. And in that sense, as Jesus says, and we'll go back to it, she has chosen the right path, and that will not be taken from her, right? So, suggestion. Just keep this as a suggestion to ourselves. What does Emmanuel talks about suggestion? I came in contact with a very interesting a parenthesis here that I would like to make. I came in contact with a very good study, and forgive me, I don't remember the name of the doctor who conducted the study, and I can send that later on to all of you. But this doctor was trying to understand a little bit more of how individuals who work physically, who has a physical job, for example, of cleaning, right? Why they don't have a well-defined body without the problems that perhaps we find in our society today. High blood pressure, sugar, and all those things, right? Certain fat in certain of a body, and so on and so forth. So she studied a group of stewards, people who work in a hotel, right? Individuals who clean the hotels. And what do? They go up and down the steps, because in a lot of these places, they cannot hold the elevator, right? Even if they're using the elevator, they're carrying the cars, they're doing labor, very hard work. And she separated the group into two. The first half, what she actually sat down with these individuals, and she asked them, what do you think about having a good life, or having a good physical life, right, or doing workouts and whatnot? She didn't go in detail. She just asked them, and she told them, look, it's okay, you know. And then the other half, she actually told the individuals that she studied, that said, and told them, look, you are doing what you're supposed to do, or the amount of workout that you need to do to become or to be considered a active person. Interestingly enough, after so many months after the study, she noticed that the individuals that she told that they do the exercises that they were supposed to do, I forget now, they start changing. Without changing their diets, without changing what they're doing. They were not leaving the work and going to a gym or anything like that. They just continued to do whatever they were doing. They changed. They lost weight. Their sugar went down. Their cholesterol went down. Many things that were being studied went down. Whereas the individual that she didn't say anything, that they're already in threshold that you do enough workout or you do enough exercise to be considered a person who exercises daily, nothing happened. So just the idea of the suggestion to tell them, look, you're doing enough. You are doing enough. Guess what? And I can send you an article, actually, the study. My perception is that when those individuals, they went to work, they already knew that when they went up those steps or when they were pushing their cart, this is exercise. And their minds start changing and their perceptions start changing and affect their bodies as well. Just an idea of suggestion. Just an idea of suggestion. This is the one, and that is what's being studied. This is the idea was to, with the power of our minds, with an idea, the idea that a thought or an idea can work as a placebo as well. That you're already doing enough. Just keep up what you're doing and you will change. And guess what? We receive and we imprint their thoughts on ourselves. Emmanuel says the following. People usually refer to the phenomenon of mental suggestion as if it belongs solely to the special clinics where hypnotics and their subjects go about performing quasi-miraculous acts. Grasset, the eminent neurologist of the Montpellier School, went so far as to classify suggestion in two categories. Number one, the hypnotic state that takes place during induced sleep, and the post-hypnotic state that acts after the subject's awakening. However, suggestion is actually an everyday event in the life of human beings and is a permanent activity of mental reflection. We are sending thoughts, right? We're receiving thoughts. We talked about assimilation. What are we doing? We're suggesting old things. We're reminding of one another of old things. The old man that we talk about, right? The old individual inside of us, or we're suggesting something new. The moment that I say, look, I'm going to change. Oh, Leo's trying to change. Why? You know? Well, maybe Chris is trying to change. Dion is trying to change. Or suggesting something that I never thought about it. It happens every single day. What is one of the craziest suggestions that we're coming in contact every single day, or source of suggestions that we come in contact with every single day in our lives? Media. Who else said something? Advertising, right? The media, it's insane. And we get bombarded day in and day out. Right. We live around suggestions. We create suggestion, we emphasize suggestion, we assimilate, we work for suggestions, right? We get paid to create suggestions, right? And they are smart. And they are very smart. We are very smart. We like to put ourselves in that context because we're part of it. As much as we suggest, we also receive the suggestion and we accept the suggestions. So when I say that we are very smart, it's to go both ways, giving and receiving as well. That when we see that something is detrimental to me or others, guess what? We block it. This is not for me to utilize anymore. The choices that we make is up to us. The responsibility then comes back to us. Because it's easy for me to say, oh, you know, I'm paying cable, you're paying to receive something, and you know it's not good, but you're still watching. You have the choice not to pay cable and not watch, you know, those things. half of the time it's turned off anyways because we're at work, right? And we can choose, especially the way things are so dynamic nowadays, to receive the things that is only going to help in our lives. It's not to say that we're not going to pay attention to the negative things that are happening, because we have to know, we have to be aware, so we can, what? Make it better, right? But how much emphasis are we giving to those negative things? And this is what Emmanuel is saying. Like electricity or explosives, steam or atomic energy, it is only a simple mental forces. Simply mental forces, excuse me. Neither good nor evil, whose effects will depend upon the use people make of it. We can see it at work on the altar of prayer and on the sacred symbols of religious services, spreading the seeds of virtue and progress into hearts of people. But we can also see it in depressing situations using barbaric rites, and thereby attracting low psyche energies, leading to licentiousness and rebellion. Our emotion, as well as our thoughts and action, are dynamic elements of inductive nature. And we put the symbol on the side, not to bombard or to put down any media a vehicle that we have, because it depends on us. If I choose to post something on one of the media sources that we have, I made a choice, and there will be consequences. I suggested something to thousands and thousands of people, because once I think that I'm connected with, let's say, we don't have to go too far, 50 people, and 5 of those individuals repost what I just posted that was negative, now I'm responsible for those individuals that they're connected to as well, and so on and so forth. Then I have to think, whose responsibility is it? Is the media vehicle that I'm using? No, it's mine. I made that choice. As much as when I choose to post something positive and I choose to multiply or to reproduce, as we saw, which is one of the laws, something positive, I'm also responsible for these individuals as well. A simple question, a simple idea that we put out there. Or perhaps, let's say, if we were to share a phrase, have a good day. Right? And some individuals, we do this. I mean, we send great things out there as well. But think about the positive impact we have on people when we consider this idea of suggestion. It's great. It's more than what we think and more than what we stop and we utilize. Kirsten, please.
I just wanted to point something out, talking about suggestion. When they did research on the Nazi prison camps and leading up to it, and they had found, and you can sort of read about this in the works of Viktor Frankl, one of the survivors of Auschwitz. This theory is, you can see it happening across the globe, where when you give the suggestion to a populace, to a group of people, to suggest that one group of people is, you dehumanize them. For instance, the way that they were dehumanizing Jewish people, were saying that they were, subhuman. They were, I don't want to use the terms because they're too derogatory, but they were utilizing this, throughout schools, and they did the same thing with African Americans. There actually was a whole curriculum where they taught people, American people, that black people had no souls. So it was a way to dehumanize. It was a simple suggestion that a great number of people captured, and I think it still persists energetically. That's why there's still a lot of, issues that go on, because we don't pay attention to those ever so slight suggestions that happen on social media, that happen in advertisements and things of that nature. So suggestion is so powerful if we're not really paying attention to what we're being suggested.
Thank you, Kirsten. It's not by chance that these chapters, they were together. Talking about suggestion, think about what? Assimilation, right? You see one person, that goes to the next person. Once that individual associated with it, what they're going to do? They're going to suggest to others. It's not by chance that this chapter is together. When I was reading, I was like, wait a minute. He doesn't talk about suggestion 3 chapters after or 5 chapters. The connection is right there, right? And it's up to us to really think, as Kirsten have said it, the bombardment of things that we have received, The ideas that we are this or we are that, or those individuals or this product is better for you, when clearly this is not serving the purpose right now, or this ideal of life is not serving the purpose anymore, we have to say, we have the choice to say. It may not change now, but we have the choice to say no. Enough is enough. We have to be respectful to receive a respected response. But we have the ability to say, and we have seen this with Gandhi, for example. When thousands of people were saying, this is what's going to happen to you, he said, no, I don't agree with it anymore, right? I don't want this anymore for me and for my people. Was it easy? No, but he said no. Talking about the idea, as Kirsten mentioned, about our African-American brothers and sisters, Martin Luther King, he did not want to take the idea that they were inferior to others. And they're not. We're not. Right? So it's something that we really have to pay attention. And remember, the purpose of the book is to get us connected to God, right? Closer to God as we reincarnate on earth. Because when we reincarnate, what happens to us? We're connected with the physical body, with this materialistic life, and it's easy for us to receive these suggestions, to imprint ourselves with these crazy thoughts that is being bombarded to us. To finalize, the school is the home of the initiation for souls who are beginning the task of intellectual polishing. It is simultaneously a center of conditioned reflexes for millions of spirits who reincarnate in order to take up again what they had acquired before in the area of the intellect. The various instructors who guide us in class and from the pulpit, through books and the press, help us stand face to face again with our psychic reality in the world. Our condition is determined by the emotional and cultural acquisition from the past. Our present training will offer further education of our will and right preparation for the greater life. It's important to reincarnate, not incarnate, reincarnate several and several times. Daniel and I were talking about this the other day. For someone like Jesus to understand of the things that he did as we consider miracles that we don't understand yet, for example, one of the several of his cures, right? Let us think that this spirit had to reincarnate several and several, and we go on all night long here as a doctor, as what we think the physical doctor, right? To understand the molecules as we don't understand yet. Because perhaps the teachings that we receive about science right now on how our physiology work will develop 50 years from now. We will understand more. We definitely understand more than what we understood 50 years ago. So we need these parameters that we have right now to develop more and more and more. So it's up to us to receive from the instructors, right now, pass it along to those who are reincarnating with us, i.e. the beautiful science or the other science that we're studying, right? Liberating ideals, and pass for those that are here with us. So that perhaps in the future when we come back, it's not that when we have let's call it a rest from one reincarnation to the other, that we're not going to continue to learn. We will, but we have to put into practice. We have to foster progress here on earth to all of those who are with us. And this is what happened to us, this this exchange of information that will allow us to get to greater life, to get closer to God. Through spontaneous suggestions, we are planning the reflexes of our individuality and collecting its reflexes and individualities of others. This takes place as naturally as sowing seeds of wheat, carrots, or potatoes in the world. Thus, we are responsible for our relationships with positive forces or with the forces of disorder and evil. It's up to us. Our friend Martha did what? Jesus, can you please tell Mary that I'm here doing all the work? She sent a suggestion to Jesus, thinking that she was like, okay, yeah, Mary, go and help your sister. He did what? Gave her another suggestion. What was the suggestion? Look, you're very worried about the mundane things, right? And forgetting our essence, which is our spiritual essence. She has chosen the right one. And nobody's going to take for her. Because guess what? We clean, right? We clean our houses. What happens tomorrow? Especially if we have a big family, especially with visitors, right? It gets dirty again. You're going to have to do that again. But when we study, when we allow ourselves to receive instructions, good instructions, nobody can take that from us. These teachings, nobody can take that from us, right? So what are our choices? What are the suggestions that we are emanating? What are the suggestions that we are receiving? Think about the passage again. Do you think Martha, because nothing said what happened, do you think Martha stopped doing the things that she was doing? I like to believe so. Do we stop? See, I'm trying to bring it to ourselves. Do we stop when we receive the suggestion to do something more enlightening in our lives? Or do we continue to be a Martha-like person that we're still, no, this is more important. Next lifetime, perhaps, so on and so forth. When do we see ourselves stopping? And we're here doing today, thank God. But when do we see ourselves at the feet of Jesus to receive the good news? And whatever you follow, whatever denomination, religious sect that you follow, but when do we stop and really reflect about ourselves? And we accept the idea that we are open to receive the good and not connect with the disorder and evil that we have around ourselves. We would like to stop here to really thank everyone. And as I said at the beginning, thank the helpers from the spiritual side of life to guide us into this discussion. There's much more to be said. You know, whenever we come and talk about these chapters, there are a million other things that we can talk about it, and we can go on for hours and hours and hours, but we have to choose. We have to be selective, because this is just a teaser for us to go and to read and to dive into these teachings and connect with higher grounds. In the next session, next month, we will be talking about understanding the credo and the family. So let us connect with these ideas, right? Chris reminded me earlier, and forgive me, Chris, because I did not remember what I asked, what we were supposed to take home. What were the two things that you brought that we were supposed to remind ourselves from the last session?
One was love.
I don't remember, but the idea is for us to connect with the next steps. And again, I'll be more than glad to send this ahead of time for us to connect, to study, because the association, when we better prepare ourselves, is much better, right? It's much greater if we at least even think about questions. What do I want to know about understanding? What do I want to know about credo? What would I like to learn further about family, right? So these are the things that we're going to be talking about. But going back to this idea of work, association, suggestion, I will open up for 5 minutes of questions or comments, and then we can dive into the next part of our evening. Anybody has any questions, comments?
First, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a nice approach in these three subjects that I think is very important for us to remember, especially the association and the suggestion. I just wanted to make a little plug here about our study group on Thursday. And believe it or not, what we studied last Thursday has a lot to do what you bring today. I would say that what you brought today is complementary for what we studied from the Spirit's book, because we studied about the influence of the spirits in our daily life. And sometimes we forget that there is another population, invisible population, that also are suggesting things to us. I mean, like, it's not that we are victim, but I think we have a huge homework here to do, that what is coming to our mind and what is going out from our mind. So in the same time that we suggest, we also receiving information. I think our take-home message from this week, for those that were in the study group and with the talk today, is doing this analysis, what we wanted to keep in our mind, but also renew our thoughts, because we are responsible to perpetuate and to put stuff out there in our family, in our daily life, with our friends. So I just wanted to make this plug. If you wanted to have more like hardcore spiritism, come Thursday and study with us, because we are exactly discussing about this. So this week that comes next Thursday, we're going to discussing about, we're going to continue to discuss about the influence of spirit during wars, battles. Isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, that's already left off, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Daniel, it's another exemplification of how much we need to do our own studies, right? The good thing, since we're talking about association, is that when we have the study group, another plug, continuation to what you're saying, when we have a study group and we have, when we hear the questions, the concerns of other people, that we take care very respectfully, even though it may seem like a very mundane question, we take very respectfully, because these are what we're going through. These are the things that we perhaps see in our lives that we are in need of. And when we hear the question of other, it makes us think, because perhaps I wasn't thinking about that. And then not that we have necessarily the answer to it, but it helps us to dive into the study, into the message that we have, and apply in our life. So thank you. It's a good reminder for those who, like Daniel said, would like to study more. Please come on Thursdays. Yasko.
That was very good. I think it's not just a coincidence that this association and suggestion how close those two topics and the physical forces behind the association suggest they are the same. Those wavelength, the resonance, and become bigger. So one thing is that we have to be paying attention, because we are bombarded by all these different kinds of waves, different quality of these waves, which is reflect the different qualities of our thoughts, our sentiments. So be careful that we are imperfect beings right now. We came here to be tested. And if we think about suggestion, how vulnerable we are, because we have those cracks. So if a bad suggest enter in this, like a bad water that enters in this crack, we one day explode, we break. And also the opposite. If these suggestions are of good nature, we can heal the cracks. We can heal and make more, remove the imperfections slowly. So we have to be careful, because we can just think that what they did in Jesus' time, during the Second World War, whatever, during Inquisition, it won't happen today. It will happen today, because we are still subjected to suggestible by suggestions, because we have this imperfection. So,
right. Thank you. Just a connection to what you're saying, and it's a very good reminder that there is a purpose why there is a reason why I put these two images over here. Emmanuel says something really interesting, that if we assimilate with the negative of others, right, we become this image not so perfect as that image that we are pointing fingers associating with. And then we become this distorted reflection of this picture, of this being, of this thought, right? Because we'll multiply the negative, the imperfection that sometimes we cannot see, but you see the reflection there? Now we create something that is not so, it's like looking at a painting that is kind of blurred, or dark because we connected with the negative. We have a choice. So tonight we hope that when we go to work, either tomorrow or starting on Monday, we have a different perception. And remember the word serve, right? That when we assimilate with positive things. And when we suggest or receive the suggestions, we only receive and only give as well what is positive. If we can remember these three things, there's much to remember. But if we remember these three things, hopefully next time when we come back here, we can share something positive. Why would we do that? Why don't we suggest this for next time, right? That what did I do that perhaps changed my life with the 3 last chapters that we learned here last time? Yes.
I don't know if it's going to happen.
Let's see.
The next chapter I saw there was understanding.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know, but I was thinking to connect to the previous one. We have so much of association, suggestion, knowledge, but real understanding, in order that understand that change our behavior, our acts, our thoughts, our acts, it's much more than that.
It is.
So I wish in that chapter, Emmanuel really teach us.
I'm pretty sure we will. And I like your suggestion. Thank you. Let us all assimilate with this and connect with this idea of understanding leader in the family as well. So with no much to say and obviously allowing ourselves to connect with the higher minds, we will do a final visualization so we can actually enjoy ourselves with our refreshments today that we have.